indeed, I'm going to talk about the Data Space Support Center. And before I do that, I just want to have you to take a look at this picture. It's a radar that is on the website of the International Data Spaces Association. That's one of the core consortium partners, like Gaia-X, of the Data Space Support Center. And here you can see all the data space initiatives that are currently being developed in Europe. Some of them are in their infancy, some are more mature, they are in many different domains. And I was really inspired yesterday by several people who said, well, but this is still the beginning. We're still in the beginning of setting up data spaces in Europe, growing them, setting up digital infrastructures to support them. And we are going to do that. We are going to support this development. Now, the Data Space Support Center was first mentioned when the European Commission launched its data strategy several years ago. This is a picture coming from the European Commission. And for the first time, there was a really dedicated program investing in digital infrastructures, like projects for the common European interest, like the procurement of smart middleware solutions, and several actions relating to data, investment actions, but also legal actions. So we now have the Data Act and the Data Governance Act, and for the first time all these things were really put into one big program. And in that program, the Data Space Support Center really plays a key role. So what we try to do is to support, as the name says, to support the investments that Europe is doing in key sectors of our economy. And they are mentioned here in the top of this picture. So there are investments in health, there are investments in manufacturing, in finance, in mobility. And we're seeing many of the initiatives here today also in the context of Gaia-X. Coordination and support actions are currently ongoing to bring those initiatives together. And we are there to help these coordination and support actions. On the other hand, there's also a technical stream, because already several years ago, Gaia-X and other initiatives have started to work on the required technical standards for data sharing and cloud. And we also need to bring those together as well. So really, we are an intermediary looking at this technical infrastructure and, on the other hand, supporting initiatives in all these sectors where Europe is investing in. And that brings me to our mission. We want to enable data spaces to sort of reach a higher flight level much faster than they can today, enabling to give them a quick start and an accelerated scale-up. Now, to do that, we want to provide them with the tools to sort of address the basic organizational and technical matters. So it's not just technology, it could also be organizational, like think of legal frameworks, for instance. And we want to do that by providing them with, first of all, a blueprint, and secondly, with providing them access to software, standards, reference implementation, so that they can really get going and really focus on the matters that matter most, namely their domain-specific business challenges or societal challenges that they want to achieve through the sharing of data. And with that also comes data space interoperability. And personally, I believe that Gaia-X and the trust framework can play a huge role here. Because if we really want to scale this to a European, potentially global level, then we also need to have data spaces working together. If you're active in, let's say, logistics and you are carrying fresh produce, then of course you should be able to participate in data spaces not only for logistics, but also, let's say, in the agricultural data space. So we need to have that interoperability. We need to ensure that participants of one data space can easily also function in other European data spaces. And if you think of that, that creates huge economies of scale. For businesses participating in data spaces, it creates a lot of additional value, but also for technology vendors, because you can then sell your technology to all the data spaces regardless of the area where they are active in. So for that, we also need to have standards, common European standards for data spaces. And now I see some of you thinking, but we have Gaia-X, There's ideas. Are you going to reinvent the wheel? And the answer is no. Because the Data Space Support Center, funded through the European Commission, is a pan-European consortium. Within the Data Space Support Center, this was a picture we took last October when we started, so we are a young organization. It brings together the best of the best from all the data space initiatives in Europe. And you can see that through our core consortium partners. Gaia-X is a core consortium partner, but also the IDSA, also Fireware, several research institutes in Europe, like Fraunhofer, VTT, and TNO. They, together with some others, provide the core consortium of the DSSC. In addition, we have what we call associated partners. A large number of organizations that have stepped into this game and said, we also want to be part of this and provide our knowledge and networks to the Data Space Support Center. And that is only the consortium. If you look at the wider picture, and you can see that in this slide, we need to work with the community. So that's also why I'm really happy to be here today and also to have, during the coffee breaks and the networking events, so many fruitful discussions. We have set up what we call a community of practice with representatives of all the various domains that I talked about earlier on. We are talking to them about what are their requirements, what should we do so that they can really get to this higher flight level. And on the right-hand side of this picture, you can see the technology providers and the technology initiatives. What is out there in Europe in terms of standards and specifications and developments, so that at the end of the day, we can bring those together. Bring together the requirements from those verticals and the standards and technologies that are being developed in Europe, and by doing so, provide a common blueprint for data spaces in Europe. That's the endeavor that we have, and that is what we started late last year. And this is not a closed shop. Again, it's an open initiative. You saw that from the picture I just presented with all the partners in there, but it's also open to pretty much everyone through this community of practice. So let us know if you have standards and technologies that we can use in our blueprint. Let us know if you have reference implementations that you think can serve a wider use. And secondly, if you're starting data spaces, we're also ready to help. You can currently already go to our website, get in touch with us, and then through the Data Space Support Center, we can provide you with the whole breadth of services and knowledge that is available in the community of practice, including Gaia-X. So it's an open initiative. And we already have our first results. We said, let's bundle some of the initial ideas that we have. And that's why in December we launched what we call the Starter Kit for data space designers. And this Starter Kit serves two functions. It provides you with a sort of step-by-step list of things that you need to consider as you are setting up a data space. What is the business rationale? What is the legal framework? What kind of organizational measures should you take? What are the functionalities that you want to support in your data space? And also, what are the technological choices that you need to make together with the partners in your data space to get going? So it's a process thing. But also technology plays an important role there. So we are building our work on what was called the Open DEI framework, and there they identified building blocks that every data space should consider. Building blocks that relate to interoperability. What kind of connectors and data exchange protocols do you use? Building blocks that relate to trust. Probably Gaia-X is going to be part of that as well. Building blocks that relate to the value of data. Maybe your data space needs to have a catalog or a marketplace where people can exchange their data. So in the Starter Kit, we already provided an overview of these building blocks, and through the blueprinting process that I talked about before, we will identify the technologies and standards that you need to implement those building blocks. But it's not only technology, and I want to underline that here. It also has to do really with the governance of your data space. What are the business models? What is this new European legislation doing, impacting your data spaces? So also for these things, we are going to provide you with building blocks, with best practices and tools to get started. And that actually brings me to our next milestones. This really is a process that is ongoing. So we've worked really hard in the past few months. We've only started at the beginning of November to gather all the knowledge in this starter kit. But if you go to our website, I see many of you on your phones right now, if you go to our website, you will find the version from December. A new version of this starter kit with many more details, with much more content, will come out shortly. In the next 2 weeks, that should be available on our website. And it provides more detailed descriptions, more extensive frameworks, and so on. What we are also going to do, and that will also be announced at a relatively short notice, is the start of the work on the blueprint for data spaces. So yesterday, in one of the presentations, the Data Space Business Alliance presented its work that is also likely to be a cornerstone for what we are doing. But again, we are an open initiative, so we are also really looking for other initiatives that can plug in or that can build upon this through our community of practice. And this work is going to start relatively shortly now. And we hope to be able to release a first version of this data space in the autumn. Probably end of September, that will be made available. And through our channels, we will keep you up to date on the progress of this. And again, I want to reiterate, we are not going to reinvent the wheel there. We are just going to make sure that what we have in Europe is going to converge, is going to come together, and is going to be made available in a very easy and transparent way for data spaces to build upon. And that's only the first release, so that will be made available. That will be made available to all the verticals that I talked about in the beginning, that also receive funding from the European Commission to do their work. And we will have next versions as we go along. Also here, we are going to be an open initiative. Technological innovations will continue, new ideas will pop up, new requirements can emerge, and we are going to incorporate them in there as well. Another thing, and I just would like to mention that here as well, is the start of what is called the European Data Innovation Board. So in one of the first slides, I showed to you the legal part of the European Data Strategy. So there is now the Data Act, there is the Data Governance Act, there will be the AI Act. And as part of that Data Governance Act, a Data Innovation Board will be set up on the EU level. That is there to guide the implementation of this act. So in this act you will find new legal concepts such as data intermediaries, which can have a huge impact on the way data spaces function and on the data economy as a whole. And this European Data Innovation Board will be there to guide that process and to give recommendations to the Commission on how to implement this legislation. And as a Data Space Support Center, we are tasked to help this Data Innovation Board. So what we will write in our blueprint will also go as a recommendation to the Data Innovation Board, and then it is up to them to assess how this can be done or how this can become part of this implementation. So these for us are some key milestones. And for one of them, I also want to make a little bit of a promotion here. Again, we are working with this community of practice, and we have decided to bring together all of them in a symposium. We had several initiatives and we said, let's join forces here. Gaia-X is also part of this in a 3-day conference. 2 days of symposium, 1 day really with keynotes on all the developments. 1 day really focusing on data spaces itself. So what is happening there, bringing together best practices, having sharing of ideas. And then a 3rd day where we can really deep dive into some specific topics. And several projects that were represented here during this event will also be there. So if you have the opportunity to join us, if you happen to be in the Netherlands, we also would like to invite you there and join us for that meeting. And otherwise, come to our website and download our starter kit. Approach us if you have new ideas and technologies and standards and developments that we really should consider as we go along. And please follow us in the next few years as we will provide you with this blueprint and as we will guide this development of data spaces in Europe. Thank you very much.